Does this mean that true order can never be attained because of evil's refutation of morality, or that true order exists as a sublime object of desire simply because there exists evil? Now, of course, there's the Lacanian question about what is the object of desire and the symbolic order, or the other there, right? And the big other there. Though I do think that the question at heart here is almost you have, well, I think that true order can never be attained is a correct goal on this earth. And I think that this is the crux of Dostoevsky's arguments in Notes from Underground. Because when we're talking about Notes from Underground, what we do see is that there is a certain moral order which can be attained. There's a utopia, but the moment we reach that utopia, we will destroy it. And that is Dostoevsky's psychological contribution, is that he is questioning the socialist aim, or he's questioning this atheistic aim of whether it is even rational to pose the end of humanity as a utopia. Because according to Dostoevsky, he argues that if we reach utopia, we will naturally destroy it. And this does seem to be really intuitively correct. And of course, heaven's a completely different realm and has different standards of rules, so that doesn't really apply to it. But if we're looking at this utopian perspective, right, the argument would necessarily be, well, and the symbolic metaphorical understanding would be the Garden of Eden, right? You have a Garden of Eden utopia there, but then humans mess it up. Psychologically speaking, that's profound because, well, there is a Garden of Eden. We reach a utopia, but we would rather pursue these other desires, which are not good, and we would rather continue to pursue these desires in order to escape falling into utopia. This part of what it means to be human, and I want to think intuitively, right? And psychologically, it's like, well, a lot of the part about being human is that we are moving in a certain direction. We're moving towards a certain goal because we recognize we are imperfect. And in some ways, our existential angst is the source of our wrestling with the world. And in some ways, if you ruin this constant striving towards the good, or this aim for the good, and make the good part of us, well, naturally, you would have no more goal. And that's kind of like a man without meaning. And in some sense, you could say nihilism is a lack of meaning. But in some ways, you create a gap of nihilism anyways, or at least pragmatically speaking, a gap or a situation of nihilism when you create this landscape of a utopia. And in some sense, you would say, well, it is correct to say true order can never be attained because of evil's refutation of morality. It's because humans would nevertheless would reject the good, would reject the utopia in favor of the evil, or at least an ability to continue striving towards a certain aim. Now, I don't think that these two parts of the sentences are necessarily contradictory with each other, right? Does this mean that true order can never be attained because of evil's refutation of morality, or that true order itself exists as a sublime object of desire simply because there exists evil? I think that both can exist at the same time. I think that the true order can exist as a sublime object of desire, the attunement towards a good and beauty, perhaps. But at the same time, the movement towards that good and beauty is itself an aim which we conceptualize as something which we cannot achieve. And it's precisely this constant desire to move towards this aim, yet knowing that it cannot be achieved, is precisely the psychological benefits or the psychological tools and utility of having that aim there. Maybe you're thinking about this from the perspective of reaching a certain goal, right? You have at the same time the idea that you need to reach a goal because you have to have that direction in life. You have to understand the good. But at the same time, you have to understand that that good is never fully achievable. It's kind of like, be like Christ. I am holy. Be holy, for I am holy in the Bible, right? It's a psychological statement that you should become more like God. But you know you cannot be God. But then it's precisely because you know you can never achieve it, but you know that it is good, that makes you have to work towards it. It's kind of like bearing your cross in Christian terminology, right? You have to bear your cross in order to reach a certain goal, even though you know that that goal is not of this world. So as a result, you have that kind of tear apart of the two, but isn't actually a problem that true order cannot exist or true order does exist. It's not necessarily that dynamic. It's that true order exists as a goal precisely because we know that we should move towards and try to achieve it, but at the same time, know we cannot achieve it. So that is kind of the dynamics between the two, and hopefully I'm making sense, but feel free to ask me more if you want me to elaborate. And if, of course, if you have any questions about anything else, then feel free to let me know.